Yeah, hi. So just before I get started, I just have a quick disclaimer that the content in this presentation is not endorsed by my employer, BotPress. All opinions stated in this presentation are entirely my own. My name is TJ. As stated, I'm a full stack developer at BotPress. I've been in computer science since 2022. I'm currently working at a startup, but I've worked in telecom and government all across the Canadian tech landscape. My passion truly lies in building tech communities, and that's what got me involved in CUSEC, which I really credit with kickstarting my journey. My goal is really not to advise you what to do. I just want to try to point you away from a lot of things I hear on social media and just from attendees at various hackathons and conferences I've gone to. So the myths I talk about are sometimes not particularly terrible advice. I would, however, argue that most of the time, they're just really not the best use of your time. So I have 3 sections, very professionally worded. So first I'll be going over some experience and projects tips. A lot of this will probably be things you heard before, but I just want to get everyone onto the same page. Second, I'm going to talk about some networking and LinkedIn tips, probably different from a lot of the things you've heard before. And 3, I need to explain why you're probably not cooked. So section 1, experience. I'm probably going to run through this section pretty quickly, but myth number 1, a lot of people claim that they don't have the skills to get an internship. I hear this mostly from first and second year students. You have more skills than you think you do, and no job out there who's going to be hiring first and second year university students, and there's more out there than you think, are expecting you to have the skills of a junior or mid-level developer. Your degree means significantly less than you think it does. You're really not learning any skills directly apart from the introductory courses, which you will have taken by the time you're at that job. You're really learning how to get the skills that you will need on the job. Myth number 2 I often hear is when people say to just build projects. I very much disagree with this. I think that you need skills to make good projects, and like I said, you're likely not going to get those skills from your classes. So you're kind of stuck in this infinite loop where you need practical skills to build your projects and you need projects to get practical skills. So you really do need to jumpstart yourself. I think that there is definitely a time and place to learn theory. I just think you can't exclusively be between the two. If you need a roadmap, there's famously roadmap.sh. It can truly teach you almost anything you need to learn. So navigate to a project you want to make, find the skills you'll need, and follow one of these roadmaps to get through it. I wouldn't even necessarily say you need to go through the whole roadmap. You can skip things you already know. You can skip things that you think, I could probably do that in the project. And roadmaps will help through this loop of Googling, tutorial following, and project building. When I say project building, I don't even necessarily mean your final project that you want to put on a resume. It can really just be you getting into a playground and building. So eventually you'll need to try to build a project without a tutorial. I oftentimes see when people are trying to get a job, they're like, oh, let me just follow a tutorial I saw online that will teach me AWS and Spring Boot and I'll build this whole project. And while that is super cool, you're likely just going to code monkey the whole thing, or alternatively, you're going to lie to yourself and say that you're not code monkeying the whole thing. You really need to try to get out there and build something without a tutorial. Great to follow a tutorial, learn how to use an IDE, especially if you're going to be doing something like Spring Boot or .NET or anything like that. You're going to need to kind of go through the process. But once that's done, completely abandon the videos as much as you can. And ideally AI as well. Oftentimes I also hear that you just need a really good portfolio of projects and to show you're ready for a full-time developer role. Also, this advice on its own is not necessarily bad, but I would argue that there's a lot of issues with how people tend to choose their projects to build. So make sure that you're actually learning something new. That's going to be a question you're asked about when you do this project. When you show this project off to someone eventually, they're going to be like, what did you learn? Try not to repeat yourself too much either. For people who choose to do multiple projects, I see a lot of people doing the same thing where they use Supabase to create authentication and user accounts, and they kind of go through this whole Next.js, Flask backend, repeating the same tech stack. And in the end, the actual new thing that they try to put into their project is very, very, very minimal. And like I said before, and I kind of alluded to, not every project you work on needs to be one that's going to go in your portfolio. You can very well just learn some new things for the sake of learning them and use them in a project later. So kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, try not to make the same project over and over and over again. The amount of resumes that I've seen myself going through and looking at intern applications is they'll have this, like a recipe tracker, a to-do list, a social media clone, all built in maybe very similar front-end frameworks like Next and React, which are very similar, and they have like some sort of database. So great, you showed me that you can learn, like that you have like front-end skills, whatever, back-end skills, you can do some database stuff. That's cool, but there's so much more to tech. Also, namely, if this is your average project, like I showed before, you really need to learn how to get into the cloud. So take to the sky. There's so many easy tools to get out there. Get on like Vercel, Google Pages, whatever. Render if you have a backend in Node. Anything like that, you need to get your project hosted. Because if I cannot use your project, I don't really care, to be honest with you. You either need to have a very thorough video, like a nice one that I can like watch, but I'm not just gonna skim through your code because it really doesn't mean that much to me. And this all kind of ties in together to myth number 4. Software development is way more than coding. As I said, I guarantee most of the projects on people's resumes right now are just containing like front-end development, back-end development, database administration. The amount of people who don't show tasks that are like so crucial to the job, like CI/CD, using cloud services, and more in-depth cloud services as well. Like I'm not talking about just like the most surface level AWS stuff you'll learn from a tutorial. Like really delve down, even if you're picking something pretty niche. AWS, Azure, all these things offer dozens and dozens and dozens of services, some of which you might look at and be like, that is so niche. There's probably one company that uses this. Become the second. QA, observability, adding things like Grafana metrics. If you're able to show off that, like, especially if your app happens to have like real users, being able to show like observability and things like that is really important. If you're working in a group, I really recommend doing code reviews on like larger PRs. Of course, if you're just doing like small things, you don't want to slow down your process to eternity. So, team collaboration, project management skills, using things like Jira, GitHub project boards, GitHub issues, all really important. Unit testing, integration testing, end-to-end tests, all really good. Monitoring and logging, I ran out of room on this slide. Compliance and documentation, architecture and system design. If you can show me a UML diagram, beautiful. It means you planned yourself out before you started working. Platform engineering, kind of similar to things I talked to before, but Terraform, things like that. These are all really important tools that I just never see, or I see the most surface level implementation of them. And these are also a lot of things that you might not tend to get to in school. So that's a lot. I showed you a long list, and you probably think to yourself, oh, I'm cooked. You don't need to know all of this. No one knows all of this, and you just need to broaden your horizons a little bit more from the basic front-end, back-end, and database stuff. So section 2, now that we're all on the same page, LinkedIn. There's nothing more I regret than this number. In fact, there's been many times where I debated just wiping all of my connections off of my LinkedIn and just completely starting from fresh. One of the biggest myths I hear, like I said, on the surface, not too bad. That LinkedIn. That LinkedIn connections matter. They do. Good ones matter. But very few people have even 20% of their LinkedIn connections that are good. So what constitutes like a good LinkedIn connection? You don't want useless ones. You'll see people with business accounts who act to show off their followers. These are not followers. These are all connections. I would almost guarantee it. You need to make sure that these people are useful, or else you're going to have no way of filtering through who you know and who you don't know. So a very easy way to do this is to require everyone that connects with you to send a message. And this is something I started doing not too long ago. So this was last CUSEC. I told people, hey, if you're going to connect with me and you don't have a note, I will not accept you. This is obviously something I started doing a little too late. My connection number had already ballooned since then. But this is really nice, because if ever this person reaches out to me later, saying they need something from me, or I just want to reach out and connect with them again, I know where I met them. The vast majority of the list of people I have, and a lot of people I speak to have, they don't know who these people are, and a lot of them, they just kind of add in, just going through me like, connect. It's useless. It's very, very useless. You don't necessarily need to do this for like your coworkers who will probably remember, or you can look at LinkedIn and see that you worked with them. I can see an argument that your alumni network, you wouldn't really want to force people to do this as well. But broadly speaking, it's really important to have someone leave a note, or just leave a note yourself. Very similar to networking, I always hear that like a referral is the only way you're going to stand out in this market. I agree, referrals can be great, but I also feel like a lot of people go about it the wrong way, especially in big tech environments. And in big tech, I'm not talking about FANG, I'm just talking about large slow, ancient companies. If your referral doesn't care about you, it's gonna go probably a bit strange. The expectation is that you can walk up to someone at a career fair, tell them about your skills, and they're gonna, refer you, fight for you, get you to the next round, and all these things. But in practice, I see it often going a little bit like this. On a kind of neutral tone, they receive an email, pretty standard when you enter in an email where they, mark that they know you, and they'll say, oh, they're cool. I spoke with them at a hackathon. They seem, excited. All the applicants are excited. They're excited to not be unemployed. So the recruiter doesn't really tend to care that much. Alternatively, the HR person goes, oh, would you like me to place them on your team? We can start filtering already. Your referral might not want to lose out on other candidates that unfortunately may be better in their eyes, and so they won't do anything. In the third scenario, HR asks, can you vouch for them? And this is the situation I see way more, is that they don't want to put their reputation on the line. They don't want to attach themselves to you because unfortunately, they don't know you. This is another reason why adding those notes on LinkedIn can be so important, because you need to know who the person is that is talking to you. Regularly, I have people reach out to me on LinkedIn asking about referrals for my employer. And I'm a very hard person to convince when I truly don't know where we met, and even if you do, remind me, what are the odds I remember what we spoke about? If you had a note that told me these things, maybe I'd be more willing to put my name next to yours, essentially. And this goes for many other people I've seen. I'm not the only one. In fact, this is a very, very recurring factor I see with senior and high-level employees at a lot of these big companies. So how to reach out to someone? I would say be direct, but kind. Oftentimes I'll have people reach out to me on LinkedIn, they'll be like, hey, and I'll reply like, what do you want? No, I'll reply nicely, I'll be like, hello. And they'll say, oh, this project you built looks so cool. And I'll say, thanks. And now I really want to say, what do you want? And they'll drag me along and along and along and along and along before finally saying the question. Ask a genuine question, or at least fake being genuine, please, or none at all. Be at least direct, no more than one filler message. Provide a copy of your PDF, your resume, a portfolio website, a cover letter, just give me something so that I can know if it's really worth the conversation or not. Because sometimes I'll drag this on as well and I'll see that they're just really not the candidate we're looking for the position that they want. Do not ask me questions that the AI overview can answer with 100% accuracy when you Google the company. If you ask me where to apply, I will never speak to you again. And if you ask me for more information and the information you ask about is on the application, that one's just sad. So my pro tip, if you're gonna reach out to someone, including the in-person career fair, you can apply ahead of time. A lot of people take as a rejection when they're told, oh, you need to apply online. The truth of the matter is that they are not going to ever look at your application if you're not in the online system. So you might as well be in it ahead of time. Because if you do really start, strike a chord, things are going well, you're having a good conversation, they can immediately open up their, talent acquisition platform and star you and mark you. This is not something that a lot of them will say. Some actually will say this, that you should apply ahead of time. But one of the most memorable ones was the DRW booth. I was speaking to a lot of the recruiters who were there, and they were like, hey, sometimes I like someone, they don't apply, and then I just kind of lose them. I can't find them anymore, and so they just get kind of lost. And they were liked by Quantify. That's special. But LinkedIn is a necessary evil. Recruiters will look at your LinkedIn. Unfortunately, it's a really tidy way to look at, this is their experiences, their education. It's all really neatly in one place, especially for a lot of customer success roles and solution architect roles. Languages are really important. If you speak multiple languages, even if you think I don't want it to reflect poorly on me, it's really nice to have it in your LinkedIn. This is the closest you'll get to face-to-face applications. If you, apply to a job, you talk in person, things are going really well, you send a message afterwards saying, hey, I really like talking to you, here's my resume again, I hopefully look forward to talking to you again soon. That's the closest you'll get to what your mom tells you to do and putting on a suit, walking to the CEO's office and not leaving until you have a job or a restraining order. So your activity also, posting, commenting, sharing, all these things, it raises you in recruiter search results. So if ever they are looking for you later and you tend to have a common name, or your name, is 2 letters, it's really important that you have the activity that'll boost you up into that search thing. So posting, commenting, just hopping on once in a while and announcing your wins and also just congratulating people on their wins goes a really long way to boost your LinkedIn. Section 3, you're not cooked. So I would say that this is the biggest myth, and I'm gonna make a huge caveat to everything I'm about to say right now. These statistics come directly from Statistics Canada, and I fear that a lot of people are gonna get me wrong when I say this, and I'm blaming them for their inability to find a job. No, but broadly, Canada-wide, by the way, just get that before I do the fun stuff. I figured I might, break some hearts here, so it's best to reward you ahead of time. I wish I had a second one so I could reward you before and after, but so you might have to leave on a sad note. In Canada, tech jobs are projected to grow more over the next decade, and they're growing right now. In Canada, in 2025, the tech job market as a whole grew. It did not decrease. Now, I will get into the specifically junior positions later, and also internships, though the statistics available for internships aren't really great, but we're projected to see huge growth for software engineers, IT, cybersecurity specialists, data scientists, and that data science one gets a little screwy because the statistics get a little bit mashed with a lot of more math-specific roles, so that number is also lower, it's more conservative. So this goes for my warning. They don't really specifically state, what the numbers are for junior developers. I've seen a lot of conflicting numbers that I'll get into later about what's available for, Robert Half and a lot of these things. What I want to show is that eventually these juniors are going to become seniors, and eventually the seniors will die. So there will become a time that jobs will need to hire people, and that time is now, because unfortunately people keep dying. So until we figure that part out, we're going to need some people to work. So tech industry unemployment in Canada-wide is around 3.3%, roughly. That looks like a negative, that would be kind of weird. Roughly 3.3%, and that's significantly less than most other sectors. And a large portion of this is big metropolitan areas. If there's one thing that is true, that a lot of jobs are moving more towards in-office work, away from remote work. And so a lot of these, random cities, specifically like in Quebec, if you're living in a city with at least 3 hyphens, you're probably, an hour out from the core city. So you're not going to be finding a job out there likely anymore. The remote jobs have plummeted. But if you live in a big metropolitan area, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, I don't really know what you guys got out west, but Vancouver, anyway, you're probably in luck. So the graduate supply is something I often hear. I've seen at least 100 students blame one Frank New on TikTok for causing a disaster of CS graduates. Well, in 2010, there was about 45,000 tech graduates from accredited bachelor programs in Canada. Since then, we've only gone up about 30%. Obviously, the internet and tech as a whole has grown significantly in those 15 years. And, in junior job openings, 88% of companies said that they were going to be hiring junior developers within the year. So this was within 2025, so this has passed. Unfortunately, the statistics for who actually followed up on that don't come out for probably another couple months. But more than 70% found it very difficult to find good junior candidates, and a lot of them were not listing skills. They were listing a lot of soft skills, a lot of personality, and a lot of communication. That was one of the main issues that they got through. And roles even requiring a degree have plummeted over the last 10 years. I found at least 6 conflicting numbers, so I chose not to place any here, but just borderline, the requirements to get these jobs have fallen because of the worker's relation to the capital and everything that you have within the job market. So you're probably confused. If this is all true, why can't I get an internship? Why can't I find a job? Why is my bank account falling more and more? Isn't AI taking over? And in this market, why would companies want to hire junior developers? You're not cooked. The industry is. Workflows and systems at all these companies have not changed for decades. The same interviews have been in process for years. I know a guy who worked at Amazon, actually an old professor of mine who worked at Amazon, left for a few years, hopped around to other big companies, went back to Amazon and got the same interview question. These things have not changed. And talent acquisition is one of the places that's being hit the hardest. Because it's all online, it's easily automated, easily overloaded, and it's a little bit of a mess. So this is a little surprise section. I really wanted to try to avoid my own personal anecdotes because I found that this is what affects students the hardest. And a lot of what I see on TikTok is people anecdotally saying, I've applied to 1,200 jobs and I can't find an internship. And in the people who I've spoken to and who I've mentored, a lot of them fall into the same trap where they have never changed their resume, they haven't changed their LinkedIn, they do the same thing over and over again, they read the same book expecting a different result. So here's a couple tips. Some of them I actually got at CUSEC that really helped me and have helped many people I've mentored stand out. I think they're non-negotiables. One is an elevator pitch. In CUSEC 2023, Fatima Taj gave a talk specifically about this. She's a speaker who will be having her keynote, I believe, tomorrow. Being able to describe yourself in 15, 30, 45 seconds and a minute goes so long. When you're in front of the sponsor booths, they want to know who you are, what you do, what your skills are, as fast as possible. So for me, it's a little bit different because I'm no longer a student, but I'll do one as if it was a year ago. I would say, hi, my name's TJ Clint. I'm a computer science student at John Abbott College. I'm currently an intern at Bell. Previously, I interned for the government doing DevSecOps. Right away, you already have two name drops. You have jobs that I've done, where I'm going to school. If I had more time, I would talk about how I really like the .NET ecosystem, though I'm moving more towards Node, and I really want to find a job working like TypeScript and things like that. So it's just going quick. It doesn't need to be super formal, but I would practice it in front of the mirror. It sounds a little cringe, and when I heard this for the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that shit. And I do it very regularly now to keep my elevator pitch up to date with my current skills. Number two is to not burn out. If you read this and you think to yourself, I'm not burning out, you're probably burning out. If you're telling yourself, I go to school full time, I have a part-time internship, I'm working on this crazy side project, I have 2 startups, you're gonna burn out. And I think what's really important is, obviously consistency. These are all things you hear a lot, but it's really to take a step back, get out of all the hype, and even get out of your own excitement, because excitement can lead you in the wrong direction, and think to yourself, am I doing all right? Whether that means taking a small break. I've seen a lot of people obsessed with keeping their GitHub contribution chart perfect in a row, and that was me 2 years ago, and doing that directly led to my burnout. Number 3 is one that can be done on a small scale and on a big scale, but it's to consume tech content. Whether that is just following some good channels on TikTok, and I'm not talking about the ones who talk about the tech market, but more about technology specifically. Staying roughly up to date and vaguely knowledgeable on what's going on in tech is very useful, and can help you come off as that cool, modern junior dev who needs to be hired on every team. This can be as super simple as knowing a couple libraries that you find interesting. So one of them that I talk about a lot is FastCheck. I don't know if anyone here has heard of property-based testing, but FastCheck is a JavaScript library that allows for property-based testing to be done very quickly. I find it helps a lot for code quality. And every time I've shown this to a senior dev, without fail, they go, oh, that's cool. Property-based testing is oftentimes done manually through common testing frameworks. If you don't know what property-based testing is, all I said was gibberish to you, that's fine. Go home and Google it. FastCheck, property-based testing. Learn about it. This is just such a small little thing in the grand scheme of things. It's a subcategory of a subcategory, yet it helped me stand out. Do I know all the other subcategories? Absolutely the fuck not. I just know this one, and it really helps me stand out when I'm talking to people. And I hoped that I could stretch this last thing out for at least a couple slides so I could better get my thoughts down, but I thought that I would risk word saladating it a little bit. Oh fuck, find nuance. I see a lot of people talk about, all these things you have to do, and I mentioned some of them at the beginning, where it's make projects, do this, do that. And I think that may have been one of the most harmful elements of my journey. If all you do is school, and you find school easy, it might be pretty easy for you to go through and do this, especially also if you love computer science. I oftentimes hear that you need to love what you do, and I don't think that's entirely true. I'd say I'm lucky that I love it 80% of the time, and I absolutely hate it 20% of the time, but I know people where that percentage throttles a lot, and I think that's totally fine. I think when you go to events like CUSEC, you'll be hearing from people who are telling you to, shoot for the moon, end up in the stars, but if your rocket blows up 10 meters off the ground, you're not making it anywhere. So, really find a place to find nuance. I was in college, I was working 30 hours a week just to keep on going through school. I was, on the CUSEC organizing team, and I was panicking because I didn't have these super complex projects. And, this is the most anecdotal thing I'll probably ever say, but it worked out for me, and it worked out for many others. And I don't think that you need to be perfect, excellent, and perfect in the realm of who, TikTok influencers. you need to find nuance. So including everything I say, everything you'll hear at this conference, everything you'll hear for like the rest of your journey in tech, try to find the nuance in it. If it's not attainable for you right now, it may be attainable for you later, and you just need to do your best for yourself, and not for anyone else, not for any influencers, and not for what a speaker at CUSEC tells you have to be. Isn't that ironic? Anyway, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of CUSEC 2026, and thank you for coming to my talk.